NILA CLTA Small Interest Group K-12 guest speaker webinar. Today we have Dr. Moeller and Dr. Ziegler. Now, please take it away.
All right. Well, thank you for having us. My name is Nick Ziegler. I am the World Language Coordinator at Nebraska's Educational Service Unit 5, where we have 7 wonderful educators teaching via distance learning. This is one of our studios. We teach via distance learning to 15 different school districts across the state of Nebraska. Allie?
Aleidine Moeller, and I'm now a professor emerita at the University of Nebraska College of Education and Human Sciences. And I am really excited to see so many of you joining us today on a Saturday morning. This is a topic that I think is probably one of the most critical areas for us as world language educators to think about. I want to first mention that I was very much inspired by the team of David and Terry Marlowe, who started an advocacy team in West Virginia University, where I was attending their conferences, their speaker last October. And as you know, that was one of the world language programs that was completely eliminated. So that really sparked my motivation for wanting to begin this team. Okay, Nick, next slide.
Yes, and so we're coming together. We have created the Nebraska World Language Advocacy Committee, and we hope to have you all included in our efforts. Our purpose and mission are we would like to raise awareness for the benefits of multilingualism, to promote access to language learning for all learners, provide resources both within our state and in collaboration nationally, materials for advocacy purposes, to build a network of language supporters within the state, within our schools, with administrators, with parents, and in local communities. We want to communicate the need. And certainly we'll talk about that in a bit, but the benefits to business and industry and the impacts multilinguals have in our communities. We want to increase the number of language teachers in rural and urban areas. As we all know, we are in a time of pretty severe teacher shortage. So how can we address that need as well?
So let's begin with a clear definition of what exactly is advocacy in general. So when you talk about advocacy, what we're talking about is any action that recommends or argues for a cause, supports or defends or pleads on behalf of others. So now specifically to language, what is language advocacy there? Well, it's an effort, a comprehensive effort to really serve as a state voice for language-related issues, and of course, to raise public awareness of the benefits of languages that will then eventually influence the direction of present and future educators and education. Next. What you've I'm sure, right? Yeah. What you've all been reading, and I'm sure hearing a lot of, is the steep decline of actual language programs. And the, I'm going to move this here for a minute. And the actual MLA report has come out. It was a very comprehensive report of all language programs in the United States with a 90% response rate, which is pretty awesome. And basically, it provided information on 258 languages. And just to point out that 1/3 of those responses came from 2-year colleges. And this report basically told us that between 2009 and 2013, 651 programs were eliminated. Now, when I talk about programs, what we mean is any offering of language instruction. We're not talking about departments in this case. And what's particularly concerning is the number of, or the very steep decline, as MLA calls it, that falling between 2009, 2013, 651, and then an additional 961 programs between 2016 and 2021. That is pretty alarming. And on top of that, post-secondary enrollment in languages other than English has dropped by 16.6% between 2016 and 2021.
And we're seeing this not just at the university level, but Dr. Moeller, share a little bit more about your experience at West Virginia, please.
Yeah, I was asked to keynote their conference in October, and as I mentioned, the Marlows had started a advocacy team, and not only did they eliminate world languages, but basically all arts essentially, and several other programs, which was amazing. But the really I think concerning part is this was done as a unilateral decision. And so that makes us want to think about what can we do at the ground roots level as well as at the state level. I'm going to be talking a little bit about all the different levels and how we can perhaps impact them. Okay.
And so and it's not only in West Virginia, right? Here in our states, the University of Nebraska Kearney went through a process this year at looking at potentially evaluating, potentially eliminating some of their language programs as well. And so we are at a moment where we need advocacy around world language education nationally, but then we also want to share some Nebraska data. So when Ali and I came together and began to think about what are we going to do as an advocacy committee, we decided a first step was to get some data to paint the picture. Where are we in the state of Nebraska? Looking at the Department of Education's directory search, I can tell you that from 2009 to 2021, that same range of dates, the number of world language educators has declined 13% in the state of Nebraska. We see that, and so we shared out a survey to all high schools in the state of Nebraska. We sent the survey to superintendents, to school counselors, and to principals. We had 220 or so responses, which is about 80% of the school districts, 90% of the school districts in the state of Nebraska. The responses, a couple of the highlights from that to paint the picture, where are we right now? About 75% of Nebraska high schools, that's both public and private high schools, 75% only teach one language. That language is Spanish. They only teach one language. 15.5% or so teach two languages. And then you get little slivers where we have programs that are flourishing yet. Teachers on staff. So I mentioned our program, our ESU, where I work, Educational Service 5, we do distance learning because of the teacher shortage and the huge need. 25% or so of school districts in the state of Nebraska report not having a world language teacher on staff. That's a huge number. When you filter that data to look at the Class D schools, so our smaller school districts, it's 1/2 of Class D schools do not have a world language educator on staff. It's about 1/3 of our Class C schools do not have a world language teacher on staff. Number of years offered in their program. Roughly 1/4 of schools are only offering 2 years of world language education. We've got about 10% that are offering 3 years. And then roughly 2/3 are offering a full 4 years at the high school level. I want to share.
We want to make sure, those of you that are out of state, that this is a survey that we developed and are willing to share with you, that you can, this should serve as a model for all states so that they can gather the kind of data to kind of help plan their action plan.
And so we are housing that inside of Looker Studio, and I don't want to dive real much deeper into the data, but we just like this ability to then filter to say, where are the different schools? What are the class sizes? Who is responding? And so that you're able to just very briefly see the kinds of questions that were on the survey. We'll talk about perceptions in just a little bit. And then also distance learning, the existence and perceptions around it. And then allowed for open-ended comments from those administrators, guidance counselors, superintendents, and principals.
Right.
Let's come back to, I want to highlight though, so we're painting a bleak picture in relation to national trends, in relation to state trends. There is a silver lining coming out of the data that we collected. Administrators report valuing language learning. I mean, to the tune of, what is that? 97% of the administrators who responded value language learning. That's great. Even better, or just as good, muy bien, they also say that their board of education values language learning. Now, we didn't ask why. We didn't ask a follow-up question of why, so we don't necessarily know why folks are responding. And let's be real, if you get an email in your inbox that asks you to take a 5-minute survey, if you don't care, you might not open the email. So I think there are some limitations in the data that we're presenting here, but it is happy to share that the administrators report they value learning languages, and they perceive their board as doing the same. So right now is World Language Week. This is the end of World Language Week in the state of Nebraska. And I see Danielle Fulcher, I see Jim Chavala, I see some of our other educators who joined in on our Nebraska World Language Week offerings. On Monday, we had Spanish Day, remembering that roughly 75% of our schools only offer Spanish. On Monday, we had our Spanish Day, and we allowed for everyone across the state to join live in their classrooms on their bell schedules. We had over 600 students join from about 25 different school districts. That's about 10% of the school districts in the state of Nebraska participated. And we, as part of that, we also shared a quick survey to students. And so this is what the students shared. There were roughly 400 who had the opportunity to fill out the survey in their class period. They too, this is student voices, they say 90% say they value learning the language. And so that matches with the administrative perspective and their perspective on the board. They say 80% are motivated to learn. 85% feel like they are learning in their classes. Now, one thing we want to talk about in just a moment is this idea of enjoying it. And so 75% or so are reporting that they're enjoying their Spanish classes, but almost a quarter are saying that maybe that's something we can do, right? As educators, as classroom teachers, we have power over student enjoyment. But I guess the point here is to share there is a silver lining. Hope is not lost, but we have some work to do. So let's talk about successful language programs, Ali.
Right. And the MLA report indicated that there were several successful language programs in post-secondary, and they've shared the following characteristics, which are interesting because I'm going to use these later to show what we can do at the classroom level at K-12 as well. So the most successful language programs had ample funding, which of course is important. They had support from administrative offices and departments, so that has some implications for what we can do at that level to gain that kind of support. And then they prioritize studying cultural components of language. And I know many of you have probably seen the upsurge of interest in intercultural communicative competence. And we've noticed that as a result of that movement, that programs have shifted upwards in their enrollment as a result, as it relates more meaningfully to their lived lives. And of course, finally, that when there's a focus in the program on applying language learning in real life contexts.
So this is the direction, right? We want to move in this direction. Successful world language programs. Yes, that talks about post-secondary, but I think that this also connects to our world in K-12 education as well.
Right,
so
exactly.
Before we go much further, we want to value your experiences with advocacy, and we're going to do a quick waterfall activity. We're going to give you about 2 minutes to write in the chat, please. Please open up the chat, click the chat button, write in the chat. How have you advocated in your professional experience? Identify 1 or 2 ideas. How can we advocate? And if it's not something you have done, maybe it's something you would like to do. Please take another minute or so, and don't press enter yet. We want the waterfall effect to be able to see all of the ideas pop in at once. You've got about 1 more minute, please, to enter an idea, either something you have done or something you would like to do to advocate for world language education.
And let us know about when those 2 minutes are up, Nick.
Sounds good. We've got 30 seconds left. And great. About 10 more seconds, please. All right, you ready for the waterfall? Here it comes. Go ahead and press enter for us, please. Press enter for us, please. All right, Ali, let's start at the top here. School newsletters. What do you think about school newsletters, Ali?
Oh, I think that's great. That's especially to parents and to then carbon copy. One of the things that really worked for me when I was teaching 11 years in Omaha Public Schools is building kind of a relationship with the administrator in central office and sending them copies of the memos that I was sending. I wouldn't do a lot of them. Yeah.
I mean, it's important to share the success, right? Share the success that you're having. All right. So I see taking students on field trips locally, internationally. What do you think about that, Ali?
That is a big one. You know, German has that GAP program, and all of the GAP programs are thriving because it's authentic. They're using the language. Exactly.
Experiential learning, right? Experiential learning. Very good. Connect with schools outside the United States. I see Janine saying designing a middle level quarter-long program to provide students with a taste, right? Some of those beginnings, taste of different languages. It's impacting our less common languages taught. That sounds great. That sounds great. Teresa shares working with high school students of color and talking to them about being a language teacher, right? One of our goals is to increase the number of world language educators. Teresa's right on target. We've got to talk to our students of color, students of different backgrounds, and to help them see themselves as a teacher potentially. Kathy shares that we are connecting with businesses, careers in STEM. Talk about that idea just a little bit, Ali. Connecting the dots between the benefits of world language education and outcomes in industry.
Exactly. And the economic benefits, I'm going to give you some examples of that later on, but this is something inviting actually a business to come in and talk to your class about the preference that they usually express about wanting to hire bilinguals, but then the impact that has on their actual expansion of their business. And of course, also the fact that the salaries for those folks in industry is something very attractive to our students as well, to mention that. I just like to underscore that as much, but bringing those people into the classroom, that really connects again to something they may want to do later.
Outstanding. So ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for participating in the quick waterfall activity. It's important to acknowledge, if you are here right now, first, thank you for being here, but you are a leader. We are leaders in education in the state of Nebraska, and we even have some friends outside of Nebraska joining us right now. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your experience. Ali, let's transition a little bit. We want to talk about advocating for world language education at some different levels. Let's start, please, with the classroom level, Ali.
Right. And this is kind of a translation for K-12. Well, it's really K-20, but how can we at the classroom level really advocate for our disciplines? And this is building on what the MLA report said, but to immerse students in a learner-centered environment. And one of the best ways I recommend that is to use the proficiency guidelines, right? As well as the can-do statements to actually allow students to see, to set their own goals, and then more importantly, to actually track their progress. Too often we think of language education as simply seat time activity to get into college or to get out of college, or to just something that we have to do, rather than actually seeing the progress we're making, and obviously to relate then that to real authentic life experiences, to personalize that instruction, to really get away from following a textbook per se, to really think about what's meaningful for that individual student, and allow for that creativity in actually demonstrating performance-based what they can do with language rather than about language, and integrating intercultural learning, emphasizing really the link between language and culture. It's an inextricable link. You can't talk about language without talking about culture. And to integrate language into other content areas. One of the great activities that we did back when I taught junior high was I worked with the art teacher, the English teacher, and the social studies teacher, and we did an interesting study on looking at immigration, and then we found a Jewish cemetery that we actually did grave rubbings, which is where the art teacher came in, and the English teacher was just teaching a class on stories that come from those that have passed away, and the social studies teacher was doing immigration patterns, and we combined all that, and we made those posters for open house of the actual graveyard rubbings that were written in German. And then we had the students translate them for the parents, those kinds of connections. And of course, they became supporters of our program. Okay.
And so thinking about that data a little bit, right? One thing we did see was a quarter of students are reporting a lack of enjoyment. And I think that engaging students in that experiential learning, those ideas, just like you shared, those are the kinds of activities that kids remember, kids connect with, kids enjoy. I think it's important to incorporate potentially some of our gamified learning for that surface level vocabulary, but we've got to dig deep. We've got to get down further into that intercultural communicative competence and engage kids in some of that experiential learning. What else would you say to that?
Let's not forget, Nick, that this is the language classroom. The world language classroom is the only place in the curriculum where students can actually talk about their lived lives experiences in the context of another language. So they can talk about their favorite movie or their book that they've read recently using the target language. This is where the relationships, which we now know from all the neural and brain research that has come out, relationships are the pivotal, most important thing for individuals in their lived lives. And that certainly in science and math, you can bring that into some extent, but you don't dive into building the relationships among and between those individuals. So let's go to
we want to start at the classroom level, and now let's talk about the district level, Dr. Moeller.
Right, exactly. And I've already talked about collaborating with faculty peers. That's important. Pick a few that have some kind that align with some of your own goals that you can work with. Work closely with school counselors. There's been some studies that indicate that counselors often aren't aware, specifically, of course, of the benefits of world language. And this is the time to kind of invite them in when you have one of those activities that really is hands-on, and let them see that this isn't just for what they often called "you're not smart enough to take this," which is so disgusting. Show them how everyone has access to language learning when taught in a way that engages learners actively in the act of learning. And informing administrators. I used to use the secretaries as my venue and say, oh, look, we have this upcoming Global Olympics that we worked with in PE. And we'd really, can you let the principal know about this? And then I would follow up with a little bulletin list with the little events of what was to come. Extend your instruction into elementary. I know Nick did his dissertation on sending high school students into the elementary schools. And what we found out is that those individuals never even dreamed of becoming teachers. But as the result of having taught those kids in elementary, they pursued a degree in teaching. And of course, demonstrate to parents during open house new approaches. Don't bore them to death with your syllabus. Put that on the web. Actually do a TPRS activity or a CI activity that engages them, and show how much language learning and teaching has evolved. Bring in some of the new digital means, the AI and the interactive things kids can do on their own to build that self-regulation so that they go beyond the classroom, and highlight student success. Let's go through and let me show some examples of that later on.
Sounds great. And so these are district level ideas. And I think they were reflected in some of the comments that we saw. That idea of a newsletter, for example, keeping the administration and your guidance counselors informed. Right now is when your guidance counselors are working with the administrative team to set the schedules for next academic year. And so helping them to understand what you're willing to do for your program, what is your vision for your program and your school. Let's transition to the community level, please.
Right, exactly. And what can we do in the community? And some of you already had some great ideas on your chat. The Rotary Club is one of the clubs that's really interested in outreach and language, and they have scholarships available for students that are pursuing international careers, and also are big advocates of language. Community groups like your German American Club and your festivals that we have in the various groups, Spanish-speaking cultures. I'm thinking South Omaha. They have some amazing festivals and fairs. That's another way to get your students involved in that, to see the enthusiasm for the culture and that it's actually being used by the population. The Chamber of Commerce is also one. One of the things I did there was actually meet for breakfast with one of the members of Chamber of Commerce, and they were also helpful in getting things out to the community through the local media. And of course, getting out to the careers and workforce through industry. Think of some of the major corporations that are international and bringing them into the school in some way. Even some internships and service learning opportunities are possible within the venue of the community itself. And we all know from the research that service learning is very impactful for learners. It's authentic. It's something that will stay with them, as Nick has mentioned, for a lifetime. And let's go.
Sure. So here's a couple things I just say about community as well. Engage your kids in some of the contests. I know AATSP is doing a poster contest coming up. I think the due is the end of March or so. But engaging kids in the community of learners. I know UNL does a day on their campus to bring kids together.
Right, Language Day competitions for all languages. It's amazing. They draw thousands of kids from all over, and kids love that sense of positive competition, and seeing other schools being active and engaging, the teachers engaging their learners in activities. This is a powerful venue for us as well. And let's talk about the state level. The American Council for the Teaching of Foreign Languages, or ACTFL, has really come up with an advocacy resource. And if you click, this PowerPoint will be available to you. You can click on that, and that will take you to a lot of specific resources and that you can use for as a resource for your own developing your own strategies. One of the things we do hope to do on this advocacy team is to develop a language packet, an advocacy language packet for every single classroom teacher in Nebraska. And we're going to try to find some funding to do so. Also, some of the things that are really important is that we really support elected officials and immediately ask them when they're running, how do they feel about what's the role of language education in their agenda? Arrange for a meeting with I particularly like to meet with the head of the education committee with the state legislature and give them just a brief summary of some of the things that advantages and benefits of language learning. Advocate with the state supervisors. Well, we have that in place in most of our states. The NEbraska group is amazing in this respect. Lobby state legislators to support national board certification with stipends, to encourage promotion of early language learning. We have a long way to go with that. And to develop agreements to establish practices and align the language proficiency goals between secondary and post-secondary. That has been definitely a challenging task for us. We have a Teacher of the Year program in most of our states, but let's develop more. Educate candidates running for office about the importance, and to work to legislate a high school language graduation requirement competency agreement. Let's move away from seat time to what can they actually do with language. And finally, this is one of our most successful innovations, is to develop biliteracy seal programs for high school diplomas. This has really had a lot of resonance and has really given us some front page coverage in some cases. There actually is a study I just reviewed, and it's actually in the new ACTFL Flannels publication, is I think it was Kristen Davin et al. Did a great report on following up what students did with their biliteracy seal. And it's amazing, the results: higher self-esteem, higher risk-taking, proud of their accomplishments, higher enrollment in college. So read that article if you get a chance. It shows you some of the really solid benefits of the biliteracy seal. So let's improve that in the number of schools that endorse that. And
looking at our classroom teachers, I mean, we recognize that advocating at the state level is maybe not something on the top of your to-do list when you have 100 different things to grade tonight. And that's okay. That's okay. And that's why we want this Nebraska World Language Advocacy Committee to be strong. And so we want to be able to do some of these things on your behalf. At the end of our presentation, there's a sign-up form. We'll send that out to everybody. We want you to be involved, but we understand that you might not be camping out in Lincoln in front of the legislature for days. But this is within the purview of what we would like to accomplish. Let's look at the university level.
Okay, obviously there's a real need for investment in language study. There's a robust, absolutely a need for support. Think West Virginia, think UNK. This is the actual report itself, so you can download it to get an idea of what is actually happening in universities. And I think this underscores, Nick, the whole importance of aligning K-12 with post-secondary. There should not be a wall. There should be a bridge that forms between them. And that should be the proficiency goal-oriented learning as they're making progress. And that is as according to a lot of the work that I have read, that is a big block for kids, especially when we talk about placement exams and things like
Sure.
that. So there's a need for investment really in working with K-12.
So excellent. We want to come back to the why. We want to come back to the why. So what are we trying to do? We want to raise awareness. We talked about it, right? We want to raise awareness about the benefits within your communities, within your school districts. We want to promote access for language learning for all learners. Once again, in your school district, but just as Ali just talked about, that bridge, not a wall, but the bridge to get into the post-secondary institutions as well. We want to have resources together for you. We want to help to develop a kind of a standardized packet to be shared out to every educator in the state of Nebraska, every world language educator in the state of Nebraska, and build a network. We need you to be, we need to be able to rely on you. For example, if we are lobbying legislators, it's common, it's good practice when you're talking to a legislature, to a legislator, to have some stories, to share your story. We'll be asking you to share your story, and that is really impactful for the legislators, even more so sometimes than the quantitative data. They love to read those qualitative stories. We want to communicate the need for multilinguals. We want to increase the number of language teachers. We want to work at the state level. We have just this last academic year passed 2 more alternative routes to becoming a world language educator, or an educator, period, not just world languages. We want to explore how can we leverage those alternative pathways to becoming a language teacher. What else would you say here, Ali?
Absolutely. And I think we've got a few, we're not making enough progress in that area. That is something that definitely is a big problem, because many programs are eliminated due to the fact that there are not teachers available. And I know it's a national problem in all areas, but
well, come back to the data, right? And so something like 1/4 of our school districts are only offering 2 years of high school world language programs. I mean, we know that's not best practice, right? We know that we need to start earlier, but we don't have the staffing to do it. We simply don't have the staffing right now to do that. All right, communication is key, Dr. Moeller. We want to advocate
absolutely.
for the media.
And this is just recently we had a story on the front page of a language teacher at I believe it was Lincoln Southwest, and some of the major pathways that were created for students to really delve into Japanese. And that is the kind of media coverage that we need to get out there. So how do we connect with local agencies? Well, I'm going to give you an example of a young man that I had the pleasure of meeting named Jonas Strecke. He is an exemplary teacher. What he does with his students, he now has 2 full-time German teachers in the Forsyth School District in Georgia. He does amazing things. He has them all participate in the national exam to see what they're able to get, because there they actually are rewarded with like Olympic kind of medals, you know, bronze, silver, and gold, and they get little diplomas indicating if they were in a certain percentile. Those are things that kids value. He has, for every holiday, he has something, but parents do the bulk of a lot of this work, and he has the support of his peers. So he has a Christmas event, and it's Saturday, October 14th, with crafts and food and all of these sort of things. And I'm using him as an example because he is probably someone at the top of the food chain with all of the things that he does. Oktoberfest, he has, again, a huge festival. It becomes the Oktoberfest in the city of Forsyth. He has the kids go to the university and observe classes and connect with the college teachers. The national exams that they take. I can't tell you how many things. He has gone to an international economics competition in Berlin with his students and they actually won something like one of the top 3 awards internationally, preparing them for, I believe it had to do with ecology and what are some innovative ways we can preserve our planet. And they worked on that all year long as part of their curriculum. But these are the kinds of things that impact the lives and the community. Of course, that's going to get coverage. And he has a huge GAP program as well, in which he has an exchange program with another school, so that kids come there and kids go there, his kids go there. So this is just an example of some things, but it kind of speaks to all of those things that MLA has recommended, that kids really realize that they're making progress, that it's authentically being used, that college values it, and that the community can celebrate it along with everyone else.
We all do wonderful things in our classroom. I'm sincere when I say that. We all do wonderful things in our classrooms, our immediate vicinities. We've got to share out the wonderful things that we're doing to help others see us. They've got to be able to see us. And so this is the idea of advocacy. So in just a little bit, we are going to ask you to share your message. And so we're going to talk for a little bit about the benefits of world languages while you're filling out this skeleton idea. And so we want you to share. Who are you? We're going to put you into breakout rooms. I think we'll have a good 6 minutes or so for you to share your advocacy message. Start with who are you? Where are you? At what institution? World language education is important because fill in the blank. To help students realize their potential in my classroom, give us an idea or two. How do you make learning fun? Coming back to that data that we looked at, how can you help make kids enjoy the classroom experience? In my school district, I promote world language education by, right? We gave you some ideas for what you might do at the school district level, and it's okay to say, I would like to. If this is not something that you are actively doing, it's okay. You can say, I would like to do this. In my community, in my community, I would like to promote world language education by. At the state level, I think it's important to. This is what, and so we look forward to seeing some of your responses. And so while we're talking a little bit more about the benefits of world language education, please be thinking about these things. We will ask you to share your responses in breakout rooms in about 3 minutes. So let's talk a little bit about benefits of world language education, Dr. Moeller.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to underscore to whom you are speaking.
Target audience.
Right, what they want to hear. So when you're talking to young people, okay, they want to know about how can I what do I need to get into college, right? And so we emphasize the fact that with every ensuing year of language learning, test scores are raised. There was a pivotal study done in MLJ in the 1970s that showed that the standardized tests are hugely impacted by the level of language that you actually completed in high school. Life skills, right? Bilingual children develop superior attention and mental flexibility. Those are the kinds of things, the cognition, that actually they outperform students in forming relationships and also the scientific hypotheses. They're able to form skills, what we call executive functions. Right. They outperform students who have not participated in language education. So these are some things you want to develop with your students and with young people. With adulthood, they want to start, college folks want to know about employability and their higher earnings and being able to know that they're going to be able to get into college. And we know that those who study languages do better academically. And there are little footnotes to each one of these slides where it's supported by the research. And then finally, when you're talking to your community and older folks, you know, I love the example of Alzheimer's is postponed 4 to 5 years when you are proficient in another language. You have better recovery from strokes and from health issues because the brain, you know, the brain is responsible for everything that happens to our bodies. And when you're accessing resources in the brain that actually allow you to recover quickly. You have a healthier brain. So know your audience when you're talking to folks. So you're talking to legislators, I would emphasize higher earnings, employability, and of course, talk about some of the health benefits from all of this.
And when you're talking to kids, right, we do want them to help see that value. And so one thing, coming back to some of the data, I'm still happy. I'm still happy that it appears we don't need to convince people that learning a language is valuable. And that's outstanding, right? And so our administrators, the school boards, the students, it appears that they aren't needing a lot of convincing. However, it's always good to have these things in your back pocket in any conversation with kids, with parents, with legislators, with your community members.
Let me just preface quickly, Nick. One of the strategies I used with my high school principal, who was not really aware of what language did, and what I did is I would actually send an article that I had read about back then in the dark ages when I was teaching this. It was all about technology, and he wasn't hot to get a technology lab for us. So what I did is I got an article, and then I attached to that, stapled to that, an executive summary in bullet form of how technology enhances learning using it in the world language classroom. And then I made an appointment with him about a week later to discuss this. And it got to be a regular thing. So he became a big fan. And I think, you know, you want to assist those individuals in a way that is a very positive one, so that they can talk positively and in valid terms about the topics that they're going to share with others.
I think that's a great example of knowing your audience, right? Know your audience. Who's the target audience for your message? Okay, so let's come back. We're going to give you about another minute to fill in the blanks with your own ideas. And then I'm going to open up 7 breakout rooms, Allie, I think, and push folks. You'll have about 7 minutes in your breakout room to share your message. Share your message. My name is, I'm at this place doing this thing. World language education is important because to help students realize their potential in my classroom, in my state, I would like to promote world language education in my school district. I would like to promote world language education in my community. I would like to promote world language education and at the state level, I feel it's important too. Are we ready, Allie? Are you ready?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. We're going to open them up. I'm going to press the create button and open all the rooms. Please click accept. Please, you might have to click the button to accept the invitation into the breakout room. Please click the accept. Accept. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Great. And great. So I clicked inviting folks back. It's wonderful. They'll be back in about 30 seconds. Welcome back. Ali, you might have to click the button that says OK because the recording is in progress. There might be an OK button in order to get your microphone and your camera unmuted. In 9 seconds, everybody will be popping right back in. Welcome back. Welcome back. Here we come. Here's everybody. Welcome back, everyone. And so, Ali, somewhere on your screen, there's likely the button that says the recording is in progress, and you have to press the OK button. I learned that when I was helping Teresa Catalano at her webinar at the end of it when I came back from a breakout room. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having a wonderful conversation in a small group. Ali, what did you hear in your group?
Well, and I think one of the things that I want to talk a little bit about is that we have to be bold.
Yes.
I heard from Dessa that there are some really troubling things happening in the legislature where they're trying to eliminate the language requirement, for example. And so I think what we have to do is simply make that effort to get to the legislators, make an appointment to see them, go to the school board meetings, and everybody can get a 5-minute talk and bring out those kinds of important and meaningful statistics, what we've learned, for example, from the survey, Nebraska, and you can do that in other states. I think we have to be bold. And while certainly it's important at the classroom level, and we know that from the MLA report, right? An interactive, learner-centered, proficiency authentic classroom is going to actually impact students who go on. Their retention is higher, their engagement is higher. But I think we have to now be bolder in the political arena, in the sense that we start to align ourselves with some of the folks that are making decisions.
And I would add to that this is not unique to our world of world language education. We in education, broadly speaking, need to be bold in standing up for public education in the state of Nebraska and in other places as well. And so I know at an ESU level that we are engaged in advocacy at the state legislature. And so I know that superintendents are engaged with the state legislature. And so our committee, our World Language Advocacy Committee, it is our goal. We do, Ali, we do need to be bold in this moment. There are changes that are being proposed and will continue to be proposed. If they were to eliminate so it's called Rule 10 in the state of Nebraska, if they were to eliminate the requirement for districts to offer 2 years, that's all they're required to do, is offer 2 years of world language education. If they were to eliminate that in Rule 10, I think it's very possible that many districts would move to eliminate world language.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's also important, and this goes back to some of the work Tom Welch is doing with his Phil project, that we begin to investigate ways that really allow students to enhance their classroom learning through other venues. You're doing one with distance learning, Nick, that is showing us that the statistics showing there, and we don't want to go into detail on this, but that actually show that students on the online venue appreciate it more and are actually valuing it more, which is interesting. So we need to take a look at those venues, that alternative venues that are really working, and start to explore ways to really promote language learning beyond the classroom as well.
Coming back to reality,
Right.
it's about a quarter. It's about a quarter of Nebraska schools do not have a world language teacher on staff. So we have to advocate not only for our own programs, but across the state, be a voice in those districts, in those communities where there currently is none. And so
but we can also take a look at models across the country where they have a teacher that can facilitate multiple languages. And so, you know, we have to think outside the box in ways. If we're already behind the 8 ball, which it certainly sounds like from what I heard from Dessa, we have got to think of some ways that are alternatives to what we already do.
All right, Dr. Moeller, we're almost there. Here are some
Okay.
more resources from JNCL. And as we come back, Ali, I'll let you take this one, please.
Right. So obviously I'm talking to the choir here. We know what the advantages are. Our job is to make sure those decision makers know what those benefits are. And, you know, there's nothing that prevents us from doing as private citizens. And of course, access. And this is where, you know, talking again about outside the box, let's think about other ways students that only have 2 years, how can they continue this? And I think we have a lot to learn from some of the models that are in progress right now. Resources, JNCL has wonderful resources for you, as does ACTFL. We're going to create a kit. And of course, this is why we'd like other states to work with us on this, is that we can perhaps a kit that really works for us. What works best for Nebraska might work best for North Carolina. And share all of those and find a space to share that and build a network of language supporters among our parents are a strong voice. They're the ones that in Jonas Strecker's program, they prepare all of those community affairs that they have, their Oktoberfest. It's not done by him, he's certainly there, but the parents are the ones that take the lead and communicate the need for, obviously involve the businesses more through service learning, through internships. We've got to think differently about what we're doing is not working. And certainly we have to continue to be active in the classroom level. That is the central place. Whether it's in that format or it's a format outside the classroom through a facilitator, we have to think about how we can really communicate and make accessible to everyone the ability to learn a language. I mean, I just recently learned that Duolingo had like millions and millions of people that are trying to learn a language. And so that's an important thing as well. And to increase the number of language teachers, of course, that's a critical shortage as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I'm going to pop this link into the chat right now, and let's see if I can do that before everyone, before we close. That is the link to sign up to be informed. When we do things, we will reach out to those who are on our advocacy team. Please join our advocacy team. Sign up using that Google form. And we will send this out again to our friends across the state. My name is Nick Ziegler. I'm at ESU 5. Our co-chairs are myself and Ali. But we want you. We want you to be involved on our advocacy team. Thank you so much for taking an hour of your Saturday to join us. Ali, I'll let you close us out.
Yes, absolutely. And let us know, share with us. You have our email address on here, any ideas that you might have. We're in this together. K20. We've got to work together and we've got to think about beyond K20 in ways that really we're passionate about what we do. We want it to be able to be accessible to everyone. And we want it to be accessible in ways that really actively engages people that normally don't have access to this as well. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us and wishing you a great weekend. It's going to be 75 degrees in Lincoln, Nebraska on Monday. I mean, I don't want you all to start moving into Nebraska. You know, we want to maintain this small population. So anyway, enjoy the rest of your weekend, as Nick said, and thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.